Just like few of our basic requirements to live life, a human being also requires several other emotional needs, like love, which is essential for mental happiness. Families are important because they give us unlimited love, laughter and a feeling of belonging, writes Shinton Jane. Family always gives you the things you need and the things you wanted ever since you're born. And the day you get old, your family will always be there. Everyone may abandon you, but your family will be there through the end of time. Julia and Sarah were sisters. Despite the age difference, they were very close. It was not at all noticeable that there was a 10-year difference between them. Julia was older since Sarah's birth, she was always by her side. And it's quite surprising because the older ones don't always stay with the younger ones. But Julia used to look after Sarah for hours. She bathed her, changed her, walked her and fed her. She's like a young mother, Julia's mother said of her daughter, and she was proud that her mother enjoyed her. The little girl really liked the role she was playing. All the other kids in the yard had strollers and disembodied dolls and she's all grown up about everything big, real. And the dolls alive. However, on top of that, Julia was also mature enough to understand that her mother wasn't exactly well and she had to help her. Her mother was really sick after giving birth. A lot had changed and her body seemed to get really tired. When the child turned 3, her mother passed away. Since then, Julia has taken her mother's place. At the funeral, she didn't even manage to cry for Sarah was in her arms and always cried for 2. Julia calmed down and had no time for personal emotions. She cried for both of them. She told everyone Julia had grown up earlier than she should have and then moved to the village. Suddenly, their father did not ask them if they wanted to or not. He simply told them to gather their clothes and took them to their grandmother. As it turned out, later he had another family, another wife and another child, a boy. Why would he still need his dead wife's daughters? He chose new family, new happiness, a new life and a word. And what would happen to Julia and Sarah? He didn't care. So Julia was for her sister, both mother and father. Time passed and the girls grew up. When Julia finished school, Sarah was just getting ready for first grade. Julia understood how hard it would be for her grandparents to support both of them on a pension. Grandma had never complained, but Julia could see how poor they lived. That's why she decided that after school, she would go to work on the cow farm. If he didn't slack off and worked hard, she could make a good money. So what if she wanted to become a teacher? For that she had to study hard. And Grandma can't support 2 pupils at once. No, Julia decided, teaching will wait. First she has to get Daddy on her feet, finish primary school at least. And then she'll be older and more independent. And she won't have to carry her to school by hand. Then maybe I'll go and study without schooling, Julia said to herself. But then it never happened. When Daddy was 8, Grandma died there. And there they were with 2 sisters alone. Julia remembered Grandma's words, that pride is bad, it's a sin. She had to turn her father for help. Maybe he has no idea how hard it is for them. But Julia refuses, and the job was not in pride. She was very angry with him. Maybe she was afraid that he would take her away and he wouldn't part with her sister. As if she had become really like a child to him, as her mother said that Julia is a young mother. And so it happened. But Julia did not take one thing into account. Giving herself totally to her sister, she raised Sarah a little spoiled, and she had no purpose in life, was lost, spacious and unserious. No, Sarah loved her sister. She was a good girl and kind at heart. Just a little careless. All she could think about was discos. Boys getting drunk, playing on their fingers, fun. Tomorrow, the day after she'd finished school and didn't know what she wanted to be. She had some pretty unrealizable dreams. Some astronaut, some actress, some singer. Not long ago she wanted to be a ballerina. In addition, it was as if she was a little child. She didn't understand that for such profession she had to learn. But it was too late to do it. To become a ballerina from the age of 6 you have to train. And she couldn't even do the ropes. I don't understand anything. This is a dream. If I have to, I'll train. And in a month I'll do the rope and everything will train. Or will you only give the academy jury promises? How boring you are, laughed Addie. As he expected, she wasn't taken after school. Not ballet, not drama, not culinary school. Instead they took her to be married. She married a local. She met him when she went to her dream college admissions. And how could Julia be against that? Once she wanted to have a serious talk with her sister. However, nothing came of it. They just argued. You're not my mother, Daddy said. Only they made up very quickly Cry together and remember the childhood. Their mother, their father. Juliet thought about it, maybe even ask Dad for help. But no, she couldn't forgive his betrayal. She couldn't understand if it was just about her. She could just send Julia to Grandma's. She was old enough already. But Sarah, why? She was so young. He could have taken her into his new family. At least she'd grow up with her mother, because not all stepmothers are bad. Like in the stories. Well, why does she stress so much? It's not like her sister's going to the moon. She's just getting married. She's going to the city. Maybe the new family will put her brains back together. Maybe she'll want to learn. After Sarah's departure, a void appeared in Julia's life. Only then did she realize she was already 30 and still working on the cow farm. Even though she's one of the best employees. She's not married and has no children. God, may she at least manage to give birth. Because time is passing and the clock is ticking, Julia decided to take care of herself, only how to do it. All her life she lived for others. For her mother, for her sister, for her grandmother. Her friend advised her to get a ticket to the sea. That's where she met Mr. James, a decent man. Can't say she was keen on youthful passions. But yes, she liked him. He seemed to like her too. James was more mature than Julia, but she was too wise beyond her years. As it turned out, James was divorced. But what was she looking for? Not at her age. Julia, however, was in no hurry to get married. And she didn't want to leave the village either. 3 years passed. They rarely saw each other. She and Sarah, her sister, were having fun, as if she were still 18. She was like a butterfly. Only one thing bothered Julia. Why Sarah still didn't have children. But the girl always changed the subject and didn't want to talk about it seriously. We have time. We have to live our lives for ourselves, said Sarah. What does it mean for us? Where would you be now if I had once decided to live for me? Julie was indignant. Thank you for raising me, but don't think I'm going to start living the way you want me to, her sister said. One day, James suggested that Julia go abroad to rest. And why not? The woman decided. Maybe she should take a leaf out of Sarah's book and live for herself. When they returned from holiday, a strange feeling was troubling her. At the airport, she suddenly caught sight of a stranger. She doesn't know why she caught her eye. The airport was full of people. But Julia seemed to only see him. His face was pale, his hair gray. Julia knew him. He was her father. Anxiety hardened her heart. She turned and looked her straight in the eye. He knew it was not strange. Why, Julia was a copy of her mother Laura. What a pain. What pain? Sarah died, her father said, and began to cry. What do you mean, she died? Julia thought it was a bad joke. Hurry up, we have to go to the cemetery. They're already burying her. We'll not make it, her father told her in a hurry and his hands were shaking. James suggested we all taxi together. They arrived as they were there. The priest was an old friend for her mother and refused to bury her until she came. Julia was a kind of antipathy on their faces. How, if she had not wasted 15 minutes packing, she would have made it. Julia did not say goodbye to her sister. Pick up the coffin again, she said. And alone. She was startled by her own words, which she seemed to hear from one side. Juliet, you're crazy. Sarah's mother-in-law said. No, you have gone mad. You couldn't wait for my father to come pick us up at the airport, said Julia. Nobody asked him to do that. He didn't even have to be told. Sarah's husband said, what's going on here? Pick her up. The coffin was picked up and the lid removed. Julia rushed to her sister. She's alive. She's alive. Cried Julia. And the priest helped her. And what started a total madness, someone was running, someone was shouting thanks. It was the case she solved in such a perverted way. Sarah's husband wanted to get rid of her in favor of his mistress. As it turned out, the girl was pregnant and that mistress's father was a coroner. It was not hard to put it all together. He got rid of both the wife, the offspring, all the culprits were put in prison. And Sarah and Julia were reconciled with their father, finally after her second tragedy. When everything was clear, Julian James visited the priest who raised her and was a friend for her mother. He knew Sarah very well and told him in last Sunday about her pregnancy. And if it was a girl, she wanted to give her her late mother's name. Julia wants to make her mother's memorial alive, and her sister too. How can life be insupportable in such situation? Family and friends are hidden treasure. Seek them out and enjoy their riches. The memories we make with our family is everything. Everyone needs a house to live in, but a supportive family is what builds a home. Being a family means you're part of something very wonderful. In the context of family love, the term refers to bonds characterized by deep affection, respect, loyalty, and healthy attachment. Family relationships are different from other types of bonds. The following characteristics of family love set it apart from other types of love relationships. May God bless our families and help us to cope with loved ones lost.